through my addiction, I carried a label for quite some time. It's taken me years to get this label off of my back. And I feel like, you know, the pits, especially out of any other bully breed, has really been beaten up by the media and portrayed.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey, and today we have Ben Lang from the Metro of Detroit. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today and spend a little time with you.
Ben's a cool cat. He sells over 100 houses a year and just got one of the most massive tattoos of a beloved puppy on his arm here. If you're not watching, a big dog lover. He loves the bully dogs. We're going to talk about what that's like and why that is. Ben had a transformation not too long ago from a life event that happened. You've been in real estate, however, got into short sales in 2005. When all the radio advertising blew up, became the short sale guy in Detroit. Were you micro famous in that Detroit area from that?
I did. So, I started selling in '05. I got my license. I was an investor prior to that. I had acquired quite a few rental properties. I had a nice rental portfolio. When the market crashed in 2007, 8, unfortunately, I had to file bankruptcy. I lost everything. So I don't think I even told you prior to this, but I've fallen on my face more than once. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I encourage people to fail and fail forward as often as possible, because listen, if you're not failing, to me that means you're not trying. You're not taking a leap of faith. You're not putting yourself out there. So I'm kind of proud of my failures, to be honest. But so when that short sale market hit in 2008, 9, 10, there was a gentleman on the radio, and I kept hearing the ads, and I heard the ads over and over and over again. And he was the only short sale game in town. So I realized at that point that I had an opportunity to be the Pepsi to his Coke. And that's what I did, man. I didn't have a whole lot of money, but I started spending 10 grand a month on radio ads, and that ROI hit pretty quick. And then I was spending 15 to 20 grand a month on radio. And that's when I really hit my stride, when I found a niche and I became a master at one thing and focused on true mastery in one arena and focused on branding that niche, to the extreme. And that's what I still believe today, is that the money is in the niche. And I speak throughout the nation. I'm a few times a year now, but trying to do a lot more speaking engagements. And that's what I mostly preach is, get that niche, be obsessed with that one thing, become a master at your craft, true obsession.
Are you still doing short sales right now?
I'm not. However, I did sell an REO property 2 months ago.
So was that, when you were building that, was that a lot of you doing all of the work? Were you able to systematize it all? Did you have a team that you were building for that?
I was. So back then I was a husband and wife team. I built my first team in 2011, brought on a couple agents to handle the buyers. We had 3 admins by 2013. We had about 5 buyers agents in 13. Things were running smoothly. And then another thing that I did was I found a way to capitalize on short sales even further. So I started my own short sales and processing company, because the banks would not pay a realtor a processing fee. However, they were paying $2,500 to $4,000 per file to a third party company. So I just created my own company. hired a couple girls at $12 an hour back then you could get away with $12 an hour,
Yeah.
and did quite well with the short sale and processing company too.
At what point did you transition your short sale business into residential real estate?
Yeah, 13 was kind of the year that short sales really started to dissipate. So I moved more into traditional in 13. I opened my own brokerage in 14 and built a team of about 20 agents. So I had the boutique brokerage with about 20 agents. I still, throughout my career, have remained very much listing focused. And that's been my niche because, again, I believe in the niche. So I'm a master at all things listing. I've got a book coming out in about 6 months called Listing Domination, and it's going to be fire.
Yeah.
Super excited. It's going to talk a lot about listing, but probably 60% of it is about mindset, because I believe that mindset is a big part of being a great listing agent.
I'm excited for my signed copy of that, Ben. I
I'll
expect
definitely
it
get
as
you
soon as it
one.
comes out. So, okay, cool. So you transition. Do you feel like there's ebbs and flows of the market as it pertains to short sales? Like, is there what dictates a good short sale market? Could someone start today and make that their niche as they grow into real estate, or is that ship
You
sailed?
know, there's a time and place for everything. Right now, or I should say, for the last 2 years, our real kind of defined niche has been the instant cash offer. I've created us to be a one-stop shop, if you will. So with us as a seller, instead of reaching out to 6 different people for different options as a seller, with us, you can get your traditional list, you can get a fix and list program where we'll actually put the money into the house so that you can net more money. We've got incredible bridge loan options. We've got sale leaseback. We've got instant cash offer. And we still do offer the short sale. They're just not that prevalent these days because people have so much equity in their homes. We are starting to see a couple here and there. Again, I just sold an REO property. We're starting to see a couple more bank loans. So I'm starting to get myself plugged into different REO departments and asset managers just to prep in case that wave comes again.
Yeah.
Because I saw back early in my career in 2006, 7, 8, 9, those REO guys were just crushing it. I mean, they were doing like 600 units, 1,000 units a year, all REO coming from a handful of asset managers. So there could be that opportunity, but personally, I think people have too much equity for us to see a huge wave of foreclosures or a huge wave of short sales again.
Well, amidst your success in all this, even transitioning into residential in 2016, tragedy struck with the passing of your sister, and it kind of created a downward spiral for you in your life. Can you share with us what happened?
Yeah, more than happy to share. As I mentioned, I do as many speaking engagements as allowed. If people will allow me to speak, I'm there. Like it's my passion. What my real passion in life is really to mentor, coach, and share my story. Because as I mentioned, I fell flat on my face in 2007, 8 with my rental portfolio. Bankruptcy, lost my house, everything, and I had to start all over and reinvent myself in 2008 from that debacle. And then in 2016, my sister, uh, 29 years old, um, just the most loving girl that I've ever met in my life. Just, she's one of those girls that she would make you a Christmas gift or a birthday gift. She'd really put time and effort and thought into it. She was just like real old soul, kind of hippie-ish, super loving, and just loved on everybody in a way that I actually looked up to the way that she could love on people and make people feel so very important. But
Yeah.
she, along with that, she was definitely a tortured soul, and she committed suicide in 2016.
Mm.
And it hit me pretty hard. I soon after turned to alcohol and drugs as a way to escape reality, a way to not deal with the grief and the pain that I was feeling at that time. So that was 2016. By 2018, I found myself in a 30-day rehabilitation, which was extremely eye opening. I mean, I remember the drive there vividly, just like, man, um, you know, 2013 was a phenomenal year. 11, 12, 13 were all phenomenal years. 14 was too. I opened my own brokerage. I opened my own gym. I'd done extremely well financially. I thought that I had reached a pinnacle of success, which, I had this unwavering belief that, once you are successful, that you're just successful.
Right. It just happens now.
Until I figured out that success has to be earned day in and day out. You don't just reach that level and stay there. I mean, it's a constant effort to stay there. And so that was one of the big lessons that I learned. But I'm sitting in this rehabilitation clinic and it's my first night there, and there's no TV, there's no cell phone, there's no laptop, there's no radio. Um, so I'm laying in bed and just kind of alone with my thoughts. And man, I'll tell you what, I'm really big into motivational and self-talk and everything. But I remember that night, my self-talk was pretty rough, man. I don't think that I would ever speak to anyone else in the way that I was speaking to myself that evening, and probably the next 29 nights that I spent there.
Sure.
Uh, but I learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things during those 30 days. Some of the most important. So one day we did this exercise, and they said, and this is pretty morbid, but they said, okay, we want you to imagine that you die next week, and we want you to write down what your loved ones and the people that are closest to you would say about you at your funeral.
Yeah. This is eye opening. I've
And,
done this before.
and I realized at that point that I don't think at that point in my life, a lot of good things would have been said about me.
Sure.
A couple other lessons, they had said, if you're driving from point A to point B, and you want to get to point B, and if you've ever driven and you're constantly looking in that rear view mirror, and you're not looking at where you're going, which basically means if you're focused on your past, rather than in the present moment and maybe in the future as well, you're going to crash your car.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, so I learned a lot of lessons. It was a rough year. 2018. It was, for me, it was a brutal divorce, a very tumultuous divorce. My daughter at that time was only 7 years old, and it was really, really hard for me. I shut down my gym, shut down the brokerage, dissolved the team, um, found myself in jail, which is not a place that you want to be. Car was repossessed that year. It was just a pretty disastrous year, and through my alcoholism, I had isolated myself. So I was staying in there by myself. I
Yeah.
was, I had pushed everyone that was close to me away in those 2 years of mass destruction in my life. So I really had to reinvent myself. And
Well, what's fascinating about the two things you shared about your 30 days, I mean, there was probably revelations like that every single day. But the two that you shared, I mean, are just examples of things that I feel like we should all do like today, even if we're not in the thick. I mean, let's not wait until we're at a rock bottom to write our own obituary or think about what people would say if we were gone. And then like the rear view mirror thing, man, like you don't have to be addicted to anything to understand why it's important to keep your eyes forward versus just constantly looking back in your past and dwelling on that. I think that's really powerful. And I know there's steps like that you go through in AA and for rehab and but like this just some gold, man. Like that's just in business and in life, really good things to do. So you figured it out though, and now and like you said, what's interesting is you said once you're successful, you thought you're just successful. Like it's just you've arrived. Now it kind of you wake up successful, but now that you know that is not true, and you've been through the thick of it, now that you're 6 years sober, is that what you said?
I am. February 14th, Valentine's Day, will be my 6 year sobriety date.
Awesome. So,
Coming up soon.
on the back half of that, do you still what are the things that you do to ensure that you're not looking in the back in that rearview mirror and you're actually pushing forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll kind of walk you through my typical day and also some of the things. So I haven't watched, number one, I haven't watched the news, the media since my sobriety. I'm very protective over my peace. I protect my peace. I have a very small circle, uh, 5 people that are in my inner circle, and beyond that, and those 5 people, I will tell you, are extremely like-minded. They're very focused on career. They're very focused on making a difference in people's lives. They're very family oriented. So
Hmm.
they carry the same value structure of who I want to be, who I aspire to be. And so I think it's very important to surround yourself with the right people, because it only takes, if you look at that, there's a saying, one rotten apple can spoil the whole bunch, right? And that, I believe, that is very much true. So my average day, let's talk about that. So I'm up at 4 a.m. Uh, I
Doesn't
drive.
seem average to me, Ben.
I drive. I drive
That's
35 minutes to meet with a personal trainer that is really on top of his game.
yeah.
During that 35 minutes, I listen to a book on Audible, and I
Hmm.
also listen to a book on Audible, another 35 minutes on the drive home. At that point, I'm taking my daughter to school. I am very much, and during the drive to school, the radio's off, the book is off. I'm spending quality time. I'm making sure that I make my daughter feel heard.
Right.
Uh, from 8 to 10, I am making my follow-up calls and my nurtures, and I'm loving on my past clients, my SOIs. And then I have 22. So from 11 to 7, I have listing appointments available. So I have 2 full-time ISAs that work for me direct, and their goal is to fill all 22 slots with listing appointments every single week. There's 2 on Saturday morning, and then I'll usually spend about 3 or 4 hours creating video content. And then I spend Saturday evening and Sunday with my family. Every day after 7 p.m., my family has my full attention. But I am very much focused on getting through at least 5 books a month.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
What are some of your favorites that you've read recently?
Yeah, so Mel Robbins is amazing. she's got a book called uh, the High Five Habit,
The
which
high five habit.
is it. Yeah, it's really awesome. Mostly what I'm listening to this morning, I was actually listening to Les Brown, The Power of Purpose. Like I said, The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins is amazing. Uh, I I just listened to David Goggins, Never Finished. I
Oh,
mean,
that's a
that
good one.
dude, yeah.
Did you
So
see the video he recently posted? David Goggins posted on Instagram about bootlegging book sales.
I did not
It's
know.
fascinating. You should follow him on Instagram. I actually learn a lot of just like normal stuff. Like he's only written I think two books, right? Two or three.
Yeah, two or three. Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
he's new to this whole writing game, but he's got so much good content that you're kind of following the journey of him, and you just having newly written a book. I think you'd really enjoy some of his content as he's navigating the role of author and bootlegging sales and all sorts of stuff. So that little off topic, but you mentioned Goggins. That
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm following basically here's who I'm following. I'm following John Maxwell. I'm following Les Brown, Trent Shelton, David Goggins, Inky Johnson, Eric Eric Thomas. I mean, those are
now
my guys.
when you speak, Eric Thomas is from Detroit, right?
He is. Yeah.
So
And he's
when
got an incredible story too. I mean, he was living in his car for 2 years. I mean, he's got an incredible story. I seem to connect really well with people who have faced extreme adversity and then triumphed over it. Like the
yeah.
everyone in my life that I'm close with, they've got a pretty deep story where they've faced some pretty tough stuff and overcome it.
You said you speak a lot. When you speak, is it similar to like an Eric Thomas type deal? Do you share your story and kind of motivate people, or is it more real estate based?
No, so I speak to realtors. I spoke at the National Association of Real Estate Brokers in Austin, Texas. I think it was back in August. I just spoke a couple of weeks ago at an event in Utah to a group of realtors as well. But I'm mostly focused on, inspiring and motivating. And to answer your question, I share my story every single time
Yeah.
because I believe there's a lot of power. And I always have at least 3 to 5 people that come up to me afterwards and they shake my hand, and a lot of them have had a tear in their eye. And they say, you know what? I'm really glad that you shared your story because I'm facing something very similar. And it's not even addiction, but like I got to figure out how to get through to the next level. Like I don't know if I can get through this. So you
Yeah.
telling your story, I mean, you got to remember in 18, right? I sold 6 houses. I
Right.
sold 6 houses in 2018. It's already over 100 so far this year to date for this year. Um, it's it we basically it's you're gonna get what you give, right? Um,
You're going to get what you give.
you're gonna get what you give.
So you give a lot. You're passionate about the bully dogs as we opened this podcast with, and you resonate with that. So tell me what a bully dog is and why it means so much to you.
Yeah, your bully breeds are your pit mixes or your straight up pits, your Rotties, your Dobermans, all the dogs that kind of look tough. They're referred to as a bully breed. Uh, w- the reason that I connect with bullies, number one, I've had 4 pit mixes in my life, and they're the biggest babies that you'll ever meet. But through my addiction, I carried a label for quite some time. It's taken me years to get this label off of my back. And I feel like, the pits, especially out of any other bully breed, has really been beaten up by the media and portrayed as a villain. And they've been slapped with this label on their back. And I know firsthand that and I know the research too. I mean, there's more golden retriever dog bites a year than there is pit bull. It's just that a pit bull can do a lot more damage. so they get a lot more media attention.
Right.
But you know, pit bulls were originally bred to be nanny dogs. They were bred for the purpose of watching over babies. It's in their DNA. They're lovers, right?
Protectors, protectors, lovers.
They're protectors, they're lovers. But we've done quite a bit over the years. I've had a ton of client appreciation events where we had silent auctions at our client appreciation. We've raised, you know, in excess of $5,000 at one event. Another event that we did a couple of years ago raised 2,000. Just handed over the checks. We did annual blanket drives for several years running. So dogs are my passion. I mean, I'm a pretty down to earth guy. Like if you meet me, I'm tatted all over the place. Like I'm just like a normal guy. Like there's nothing really special about me. I just get up and grind, and I I truly believe that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement.
Yeah.
And I never ever want to be stagnant, and I never want to be complacent. So with this shift that we're currently experiencing in the market, I'm telling the agents on my team, invest in you right now. Make yourself the best version of you that you can possibly be. And that's what's going to get you through this. And that's kind of what I'm preaching. And, you know, we're a lot of teams or team leads and individual agents are down 30-40% year over year from last year. We're actually up from last year. So I think the proof is in the pudding.
I love that you speak on your experiences and what got you to this point. I talk to people in business and sales all the time who are maybe they're in a rut or they're in a section of their life where I encourage them to think about a couple years from now when they could be sharing their story on stage of the triumph over the obstacles. And it seems like you're doing that. There's one person I want to connect you with, Tim Stout, who was on the show a couple months ago from Atlanta, Georgia. He was an MMA fighter that turned realtor, super intense guy. You guys have a lot of similarities, though. I think you guys
Nice.
would get along. So I'm going to make that connection. Where can we find you, Ben? If we're looking, I mean, you say you speak a lot. What's the book called again? Where can we find that?
Yeah, book is called Listing Domination. It's being edited. It should drop in March. YouTube, Insta, Facebook, it's all going to be Lang Estates. It's my last name, Lang, plus the word estates, plural. Definitely find me, hit me up. I'm more than happy to share knowledge. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a collaborator. I'm willing to give away anything that I have inside of me. Like there's no secret sauce here. Anything that I give away, it's not like it's not proprietary or anything.
Well, there's a level of humility. I mean, you told Bobby when you met with him, you approach every day with humility, grace, and gratitude. And I said it before in this podcast that you don't need to wait until you're addicted or hit rock bottom to apply this level, these things that you've learned to approach every day with humility, grace, and gratitude. I've spoken with realtors before that they're not they might not think they're at rock bottom, but maybe their attitude is, and they don't even realize it because they just think they're on top of the world and that they're above all of this. And there's something attractive about that humility, that humble spirit that you have. So thanks for leading by example.
Man, yeah. When just a little backstory when I was talking with Bobby. So I told Bobby, I said, listen, in 2013, I was in like my early 30s. My dad was a butcher. I grew up super poor. And so when we did really, really well in 11, 12, 13, I was not the nicest guy, man. I was very much ego driven, and I didn't have a whole lot of fans. So when I got sober, I mean, getting knocked down flat on your face and then having to claw your way back up, I've just kept it in the back of my mind, like that, you know. I think my first go around, it got a hold of me because, like I said, I grew up really, really poor. and there was all this money flowing in, and I let it get away from me. But I'm very conscious these days about staying in a place that where I never. I want to. I really want to look at myself in the mirror every day and say, "Hey, I like who I'm looking at," and it's
Mm.
really important to me that I never go back to that. So the pride is gone, the ego is gone. It is very much about humility and grace.
I love it, man. Thanks for being on the show, Ben. Appreciate your story.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.